Welcome back to the Lights Out podcast, bedtime stories for boys and girls around the world. Good evening, boys and girls. Are you ready for bed? Are you all snuggled up and ready for another Lights Out bedtime story? Good, because you're in for a treat tonight with a book called Edwardo, the Horriblest Boy in the Whole Wide World by John Burningham. Once upon a time, Edwardo was an ordinary boy. He would get up in the morning, get dressed, have his breakfast, go to school and play games, eat his supper, and go to bed. Sometimes Edwardo would kick things.
"You're a rough boy, Edwardo. You're always kicking things. You're the roughest boy in the whole wide world."
Edwardo became rougher and rougher. Like most children, Edwardo made a lot of noise.
"You're a very noisy boy, Edwardo. You're the noisiest boy in the whole wide world."
Edwardo became noisier and noisier. From time to time, Edwardo was nasty to little children.
"You're a nasty bully, Edwardo. You're the nastiest boy in the whole wide world."
Edwardo became nastier and nastier. Occasionally, Edwardo was not very nice to animals and would chase the cat.
"You're a cruel boy, Edwardo, chasing the cat. You're the cruelest boy in the whole wide world."
Edwardo became more and more cruel. Edwardo was not always good at keeping his room tidy.
"Your room's getting messier and messier every day, Edwardo. You're the messiest boy in the whole wide world."
Edwardo's room became messier and messier. Often Edwardo would forget to wash his face and brush his teeth in the mornings.
"You're a dirty boy, Edwardo. You're the dirtiest boy in the whole wide world."
And Edwardo became dirtier and dirtier, and as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Edwardo became even clumsier, crueler, noisier, messier, dirtier, nastier, ruder and rougher, until one day they said,
"Edwardo, you really are the horriblest boy in the whole wide world."
Then one day, when Edwardo kicked a pot of flowers, it flew through the air and landed on some earth.
"I see you're starting a little garden, Edwardo.
It looks lovely. You should get some more plants." Edwardo was good at growing things, and he was asked to help people with their gardens. Cruel Edwardo was waiting for the dog with a bucket of water. He threw it over the dog as it came by. "Thank you so much, Edwardo, for washing my muddy dog for me. You're so good with animals." And so Edwardo was asked to clean and look after everybody's pets. Edwardo's room was getting so untidy that he could not find anything, so he threw everything out of the window. All Edwardo's things landed in a truck that was collecting for poor people. "Thank you, Edwardo, for giving me all the things, and thank you for giving them away. Look at Edwardo's room. Why can't you all be as neat and tidy as he is?" Edwardo was becoming dirtier and dirtier until one day he became so dirty that flies started to chase him down the road. He jumped into the river to get away from them. A lady pulled Edwardo out of the river and took him back to her house. She gave him a hot bath, washed and ironed all his clothes, and sent him back to school. "Look, children, look at Edwardo. He's the cleanest and smartest boy in the whole school." One day, at school, nasty Edwardo pushed over little Alec very hard. At that moment, one of the lights in the room crashed down onto the spot where Alec had been standing. "You've just saved our little Alec. What a quick-thinking boy you are. You should look after the little ones," And from then on, Edwardo looked after the little children. One day Edwardo was making more noise than he had ever made before, which frightened some lions who had escaped from the zoo. They were so frightened by the noise Edwardo had made that they went back into the cage.
You're very good with lions, Edwardo. Perhaps you could come and help me.
And now, from time to time, Edwardo is a little untidy, cruel, dirty, messy, clumsy, noisy, nasty, and rude. But really, Edwardo is the loveliest boy in the whole wide world. The end of Edwardo, the horriblest boy in the whole wide world. Here on the Lights Out podcast, bedtime stories for boys and girls around the world. Good night.